Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. I used to love my wife with everything I had. I would have taken a bullet for Sophie without a second thought. But that was before she tore my heart out and destroyed what we built together. Before she chose him. Now it's time for consequences. The house was dark as I crept up the stairs, each step careful and deliberate. The sounds from what used to be our bedroom made it clear they hadn't heard me come in. I reached the partially open door and shoved it wide with the shotgun barrel leading the way. There they were. My soon-to-be ex-wife Sophie and my boss, Brett Callahan. I chambered around. The metallic click cut through everything else. They froze, staring at me in shock. Nothing grabs attention quite like that sound. "Brett, get away from her," I said, my voice cold. "What are you doing here, Carter?" He had the nerve to ask. "You were supposed to be in Cleveland. Did you want to watch? Is that it?" Sophie actually giggled. That's when everything started. I fired until the magazine was empty, the room filled with smoke and the acrid smell of gunpowder. When my rage finally passed, I looked at what remained and realized my life was over. The police would come. They'd probably shoot me on sight, and if they didn't, I'd end up on death row anyway. I checked the shotgun. One shell left. I raised it to my chin. I sat up in bed, my body drenched in sweat. For a moment, I didn't recognize where I was. Then it came back to me, the Comfort Inn in Cleveland, Ohio. I'd been here since Sunday. It was early Thursday morning. I was here to update the client database at Brett's direction. The work had finished Wednesday afternoon, and I'd planned to drive home after sunrise. Now, checking the clock, I saw it was only 3:30 a.m. Damn, I'd never get back to sleep. I got up, splashed cold water on my face, and made coffee in the little pot on the dresser. The TV provided background noise as I tried to calm down. This wasn't the first time I'd had this nightmare, and something told me it wouldn't be the last. Nearly every night for the past week, since I first learned about Sophie's betrayal, I'd woken up like this. The details varied, sometimes a machine gun, once a rocket launcher, another time I dreamed I used a goddamn tactical nuke and took out half the county along with the two of them. Keep in mind, I'm not typically a violent person. I spent 4 years as a volunteer firefighter in rural Fairfield County, Ohio, and while I've seen some terrible things, I never once hurt anyone deliberately. Sure, I own a couple of pistols and a 12 gauge. Everyone around here does. But I never once considered using them against another person. Until recently. Why the change? Let me tell you. My name is Carter Mitchell. My parents had a thing for presidents, so I got saddled with Carter after Jimmy Carter. My sister got named Madison after, you guessed it. I joined the volunteer fire department straight out of high school, mostly because my dad had been a volunteer for 30 years. I spent 4 years responding to house fires, car accidents, and medical emergencies throughout Fairfield County. I realized early on that heroism doesn't pay the mortgage. The department offered educational assistance, so I went to Columbus State Community College and got a degree in IT and business management. It took 3 years to complete a 2-year program because I was working part-time, but I finished. When I graduated, I went to work as a customer service representative for Apex Systems Integration, a regional IT company headquartered in Columbus. I met Sophie when I was doing tech support for the Columbus Dispatch. She worked as a photo editor, deciding which images would run with their articles. We talked, we dated, we fell in love. 5 years ago, we got married. The next 4.5 years were good. Really good. Sophie and I got along well and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. We made love regularly and talked about starting a family. We both had decent salaries, so we bought an old 4-bedroom farmhouse outside the city, set on 1.5 acres. It needed work, but we both loved it. She liked the rustic charm, and I loved the detached workshop on the property. We especially loved that the master bedroom had its own gas fireplace. Plenty of space for the kids we planned to have. Then the world went to hell. At least for me. My boss, Frank Donovan, retired, and the company started looking for a replacement. I thought it was a perfect opportunity, so I applied. Dennis Whitmore, the man in charge of the company's regional operations, told me later that I was seriously considered, but the board chose someone else. Brett Callahan. I looked him up on the company intranet. He was being transferred from Boston, where he'd worked as a senior account representative. He had slightly more experience than me, but not much. His uncle also happened to be on the board of directors. Naturally, he got the job. I studied his photo, that crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. Something about him immediately put me on edge. There was a smugness there, a sense of entitlement that rubbed me wrong. He came aboard and made the rounds. Women in the office were drawn to him immediately. He was a few inches taller than me, well-built, with that easy confidence that comes from never being told no. When he shook my hand for the first time, he flashed that same crooked smile. "So I finally meet my competition," he said. "I was told you almost got my job. Don't worry. I won't let that affect our relationship." "Glad to hear it," I told him. He smiled and left my office. Something about him really pissed me off, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what. One evening after dinner, I mentioned him to Sophie. "New boss started today," I said. "Guy named Brett Callahan. Something about him rubs me the wrong way." Sophie's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Her face went pale. "Brett Callahan?" she repeated quietly. "Yeah. You know him?" She set down her fork carefully. We dated in college. Before I met you. It ended when he took a job in Boston right after graduation. My stomach tightened. "Your ex-boyfriend is now my boss? And you didn't think to mention this when I told you someone from Boston was being transferred here." "I didn't know it was him," she said quickly. "Carter, that was 10 years ago. It doesn't mean anything now." I studied her face. "Does he know you live here? Does he know you're married?" I don't know. We haven't been in contact since college." "This is going to be awkward as hell at work," I said. "Maybe not," Sophie said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe he won't even remember me." But the way she said it, and the way her hands trembled slightly as she picked up her fork, made me wonder if she wanted him to remember. "Should I mention to him that you two dated?" I asked. "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I mean, let's just see how it goes. It was so long ago. No point making it weird." I nodded, but something about this whole situation felt wrong. A few days later, I figured I should try to build some rapport with Brett, despite my unease. Over lunch in the break room, I mentioned that Sophie worked at the Columbus Dispatch. "My wife's a photo editor there," I said casually. Brett's expression didn't change, but I could have sworn something flickered in his eyes. "That's great," he said smoothly. "Sophie Mitchell, right? I think I saw her byline on a photo credit once." Small world. The fact that he knew her married name made my skin crawl, but I pushed the feeling aside. "Yeah, small world." I agreed. He nodded and changed the subject to work, but I noticed him checking his phone more than usual for the rest of the day. That evening, Sophie seemed distracted. "Did Brett mention anything about me at work?" she asked while we were doing dishes. "I mentioned you work at the Dispatch," I said. "Why?" He sent me a LinkedIn message today," she admitted. "Just saying hello. Said he was glad to see I was doing well." I felt my jaw tighten. And nothing. I didn't respond. "Carter, it's just a professional networking thing. Don't make this into something it's not." "Did you tell him you're married to someone at his company?" She hesitated. "Not yet. I figured you'd probably mention it." "I did," I said. "Today." "Oh." She looked relieved, though I wasn't sure why. Looking back, I realized that was the moment everything started. That was when Brett Callahan began his campaign to get back what he'd left behind 10 years ago. And I was too blind or too trusting to see it coming. The next day at work, Brett came into my office. Listen, Carter, I need you to start traveling more, he said. I know my predecessor limited your road time, but I'm concerned we might lose some business if we don't get more aggressive. What are we talking about? He was right. Frank had made sure I traveled no more than once every 2 weeks, worried about how it would affect my family life. That was one of the things I really appreciated about him. I'm thinking maybe 1 trip a week, Brett said. I know it can be tough with Sophie, but I'll make sure you're well compensated for the time away from home. The way he said her name made my skin crawl. When does this start? Next week, he said. It wasn't much notice, considering it was already Friday. Actually, I'd like you to go to Cincinnati on Monday. Patterson-Levy is discussing upgrading their servers for tax season, and I want your assessment and recommendations. I know this is usually handled remotely, but I'd like you to be more hands-on. Patterson-Levy was an accounting firm we'd worked with for years. This was the first I'd heard about any upgrade. Okay, I said. What time frame are we talking about? Won't take more than a few hours at most. You forget they have offices all over the metro area, I said. I'll need to visit all of them. Crap, that could take 2 or 3 days. Maybe 4. Okay, I said. I'll let Sophie know. She won't be happy. I think she'll come around when she sees the bump in your paycheck, Brett said before leaving my office. Sophie wasn't happy that I'd potentially be gone for 4 days the following week, but I took her out to dinner and dancing that Saturday night, and we spent most of the weekend in bed together. Call me when you get settled, she said as I packed my bag Monday morning. And I expect a call every day. Will do. And you better be on your best behavior, she added with a smile. Am I not always? I asked before kissing her goodbye. I called her on her cell once I got to Cincinnati, and then again that evening after my first client meeting. Every night we had pleasant, long conversations that always ended on a happy note as it turned out. I finished early Thursday morning, so I drove home to surprise her. We had a wonderful reunion, and I thought everything would be fine. The next couple of weeks weren't too bad. I was only gone overnight during those weeks. After that, everything started to change. The trips became longer and longer. Over the next 4 weeks, I was gone for 4 days on average, with 1 trip lasting a full 5 days. Brett was true to his word. I did see a significant bump in my paycheck, but it hardly made up for the time away from Sophie. At first, Sophie seemed to handle the absences okay, but I could tell they were starting to take a toll after the 4th week. When I got home that week, I thought I smelled cigarettes. Both Sophie and I had smoked when we first met. After we got married, we'd decided to quit together. It had been tough, but we'd managed it. We'd been smoke-free for about 2 years. Did you smoke while I was gone? I asked. Yes, she admitted. I'm sorry. It's just so hard when you're not here. I understand. I told her. You know I don't have a choice, right? Brett is the one sending me everywhere. I know, she said. I just don't like it. I want you home more. Me too. Maybe I'll talk to Brett, see if he can ease up a little. I actually did talk to Brett about it, but he interrupted me. It's part of the job, he said flatly. If you don't like it, you can find another position elsewhere. As someone from a decent company who needed to pay bills, I accepted it and kept working. But I still felt something was off. About a week later, I just returned from a trip and was getting ready for bed when Sophie asked me to turn on the fireplace. We both loved having it on when we were intimate, so I went to light it. That's when I noticed the pilot light wouldn't stay lit. I tried a few times, couldn't get it to work, so I shut off the gas supply and made a mental note to call a technician. Because of my schedule, it took a couple of weeks before I could get anyone to look at it. After running diagnostics, the technician looked at me and shook his head. I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, but this regulator is shot. It's probably been here for at least 60 years. Can you replace it? He shook his head. Afraid not. They stopped making these about 30 years ago. Honestly, I'm surprised it lasted this long without causing problems. He paused. Look, I don't mean to scare you, but with a faulty regulator like this, you could have a serious carbon monoxide leak. If I were you, I'd replace the entire unit. I felt a chill run down my spine. I'd pulled 3 bodies out of a house once, whole family dead from CO poisoning. They'd just gone to sleep and never woke up. I'm not sure when I'll have time to do this, I said. I've got a pretty packed schedule. He handed me a business card. Well, when you have time, come see what we've got. We even have remote control units you can operate from your smartphone. In the meantime, I wouldn't turn the gas back on, or you could be in serious trouble. Thanks, I said, taking his card. Unfortunately, I never found the time to replace the unit, despite Sophie's constant reminders. Brett kept sending me out, sometimes even on weekends. As a result, the house stayed cold. Our intimate life practically disappeared, and Sophie began speaking to me in short, clipped sentences. I did my best to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but it wasn't easy. As the trips continued, Sophie became increasingly withdrawn. Brett didn't seem to care. He just kept referring me to one client after another. Several times when I called our home phone, it went to voicemail. When I called Sophie's cell, it went straight to voicemail. When I asked her about it, she always had an excuse. Sorry, I decided to go out for drinks with the girls and didn't hear the phone ring, she'd say. Then the worst thing that could happen happened. I finished a site visit a day early and decided to head home to surprise Sophie. As it turned out, I was the one who got surprised. As I pulled into our driveway, I saw Brett's BMW parked in front of the garage. I wondered what he was doing here. I got out and put my hand on the hood of his car. It was quite warm. He hadn't been here very long. I walked into the house and saw Sophie sitting on the couch with Brett. I saw her quickly pull her hands away when I opened the door. I also noticed what she was wearing. A short black dress that showed most of her legs and considerable cleavage. There was also a thick smell of cigarette smoke in the house. Carter, you're home? She said, standing up quickly. Brett stood too, looking at me with a smirk. Yeah, surprise, I said. We finished work a day early, so I decided to come home and spend some time with my wife. I turned to Brett. What's going on here? Brett was just about to take me out to dinner, Sophie said quickly. Brett grinned and nodded. I see, I said. I turned to Brett before speaking again. Well, I'm home now, so if anyone's taking Sophie out anywhere, it'll be me, her husband. I think you should leave. What if I don't? He asked. Then I'll throw you out of my house myself, I said evenly. You may be my boss at work, but not here, not in my home. He grinned and looked at Sophie. I'll take care of it, Sophie said, looking at Brett. I think you should go. Brett didn't say anything for a few moments, then nodded and started toward the door. I'm talking to Dennis about this tomorrow, I said before Brett could leave. I don't think he'll approve of you making moves on an employee's wife. You better not tell Dennis anything, Brett said, turning back. You forget that my uncle is a senior board member. Both your job and Dennis's are in his hands. And don't forget, you need to be in Cleveland on Sunday. He turned to Sophie. I'll talk to you later, he added before closing the door. I turned back to Sophie. What the hell is going on here? I asked. Are you sleeping with him? Sophie didn't say anything. She just lowered her eyes. I had my answer. That's it, isn't it? How long has this been going on? A while, she admitted quietly. Damn it, Carter, you're never home. She wiped her eyes. When Brett came back into my life, all those old feelings from college came flooding back. He said leaving me was the biggest mistake he ever made. And I was so lonely. So this is about your college boyfriend? I said bitterly. The one you didn't think about anymore? Jesus, Sophie, he literally engineered this whole thing. Sending me away so he could have you. She flinched. How many times? I asked. How many times in our bed? I didn't count. Amazing, I said bitterly. Did you fall in love with him? Not really, she said, and tears started forming in her eyes. But I still love you. I just wanted you home. You know what this means, don't you? What? She whispered. It means I'm getting a divorce as soon as possible. There's no way I can live with this. Please, Carter, don't, she said. I don't want a divorce. You and I haven't been together in months, I said. You didn't even try to make things work. Damn it, Sophie. How could you be so selfish? What are you going to do now? She asked. I'm getting a motel room for the night. There's no way I'm sleeping in that bed again. Not after you've been with him in it. And there's nowhere else to sleep. I'll be damned if I try the couch. Besides, the whole place reeks of cigarettes. By the way, do you let him smoke in here? We both smoke in the house, she said quietly. That I stood up, trying to control my anger. Let me get one thing straight, I said slowly. I'm finding a motel tonight. I'll come by tomorrow while you're at work to get some of my things. And if you bring that asshole into my house again before the divorce is final, you'll both regret it. Do you understand me? Yes, Sophie said. Tears streaming down her face, I rushed upstairs to grab my suitcase and some clothes. I saw ashtrays on both nightstands, both filled with ash and cigarette butts. The room smelled of stale smoke, and it was all I could do not to throw up. I packed enough for a couple of days and headed back downstairs. Sophie was still sitting on the sofa. I'm leaving now, I said. I took off my wedding ring and threw it on the table in front of her. I won't need this anymore. Remember what I said. Goodbye. I left the house, got in my car, and drove away. I don't know what she did after I left, and frankly, I didn't care. All I know is she didn't bombard me with calls or texts. I found a motel that rented rooms with a kitchenette by the week and paid for 2 weeks in advance. I had a feeling I'd be there longer and didn't want to risk losing the room when I returned from Cleveland. I settled in, and that night, the nightmares began. The next day, I came to work early and submitted all my documents, deliberately avoiding Brett. I went to see Dennis Whitmore, who was next in my chain of command. Carter, you're here early, he said. How did everything go? Everything went fine, Dennis. I've already submitted my paperwork. Listen, I have a personal problem I need to deal with before I leave for Cleveland, and I was wondering if I could take the rest of the day off. Have you talked to Brett yet? He asked. Well, Brett is part of my problem, I said. He looked at me with surprise. What do you mean? I spent the next few minutes telling him what had happened the previous evening and what Sophie had admitted. I need to pick up some more of my things and see a divorce lawyer today, I said. That's why I came to you instead of going to Brett. I see, Dennis said. Okay, go do what you need to do. I'll handle Brett. And listen, if you need someone to talk to, feel free to call me anytime. I thanked him and left the building. Fortunately, I managed to avoid Brett. I went to a cafe and had a quick breakfast while searching for a divorce attorney on my smartphone. I found one and made an appointment for that same afternoon. After finishing breakfast, I checked the time and figured Sophie had already left for work, so I headed to what used to be our house. Her car was nowhere in sight, so I parked and went inside. The room still smelled of cigarettes, but not as strongly as last night. I went upstairs and grabbed more of my things, took them to my car. I grabbed some trash bags, filled them with as much as I could carry, and loaded them into the car as well. I'd need to rent a storage unit. I went into my workshop and took inventory of everything there. Naturally, I couldn't fit it all in the car, and I knew I'd have to come back for it. Then I remembered something from my firefighter days. In the back of a storage cabinet, I found an old container of irritant powder, the kind we'd kept for hazmat response training to test our equipment's effectiveness. I also had some fine fiberglass insulation particles from when I'd been working on the attic. A bad thought flashed through my mind. From my firefighter training, I knew that certain irritant powders, when heated, would aerosolize and create an extremely unpleasant environment. The training powder mixed with fine particulates would do exactly that. When exposed to heat, like from a lit cigarette or body heat, the powder would become airborne, causing intense burning in the eyes, nose, and throat. Coughing, tears, difficulty breathing. Unpleasant as hell, but temporary. After a good shower and some fresh air, the effects would wear off. I took the containers into the house. I carefully mixed the irritant powder with the fine fiberglass particles and poured the mixture into one ashtray, then did the same with another on the other nightstand. If Sophie and Brett decided to enjoy a cigarette after being together, they'd be in for a nasty surprise. Maybe it would stop them from smoking in my house. But I didn't stop there. I took more of the mixture and sprinkled it on the bottom sheet of the bed and both pillows, then carefully replaced the top sheet and comforter. The powder would react to body heat and movement. I thought about putting some in the HVAC system but decided against it. What I'd already done would be enough to interrupt things, at least for now. The last thing was to collect my guns, my personal laptop, and our tax returns for the last 2 years, which the lawyer had said she'd want to see. I locked the guns in my trunk, then locked the house and drove away. I rented a small storage unit and stashed my things until I could find another place to call home. After unloading, I locked the unit and noticed I had just enough time for a quick burger before meeting with the lawyer. I arrived at Rebecca Moss's law office right on time and was ushered into her office. She listened to my story, taking notes as I spoke. She didn't say anything until I finished. "Well, Mr. Mitchell, that's quite a story," she said. "Do you see any way to restore your marriage?" "None," I said flatly. "Okay. Well, for starters, Ohio is a no-fault divorce state, but you can cite adultery as it could affect the distribution of marital assets. You don't have children, so there won't be any issues with child support. From the tax forms you brought, I see your wife made slightly less than you, but in my opinion, not enough to claim spousal support. What about the house? Do you want to keep it?" "No," I told her. "I can't live there anymore. She can keep it if she wants, or we could sell it and split the proceeds. But I doubt we have much equity in the place. I'd suggest proposing a sale and see what she says. Now, regarding your boss, you mentioned he threatened you?" "Yeah. Said his uncle's on the board and could get me fired." "You work at Apex Systems Integration, right?" she asked. "Yes." "Well, you're fortunate. I happen to know they have strict policies against this kind of behavior. Talk to HR or his superior. Let them know what's going on. I'm sure they'll work with you. If they don't, come back and we'll discuss options." "Sounds good. Thank you." "Okay. I'll start filing the paperwork." "Where would you like her to be served?" "It'd be nice if it happened at her work," I said. Rebecca smiled slightly. "Okay. Now, don't do anything stupid between now and then. That also means no dating. The court generally doesn't view that favorably during proceedings." She pulled out a business card and handed it to me. "I'd also recommend you see a therapist." I recognized the name, Dr. Vanessa Pierce. "Got it. Thank you." We concluded the meeting and I paid the retainer. She handed me a checklist of things that would help protect me financially. We only had one joint credit card through our bank, so I canceled it, withdrew half of what we had in our account, and opened a new account in just my name. From there, I grabbed a bite to eat and headed back to the motel. I didn't hear anything from Sophie until late that evening. I recognized her number when it popped up on my phone, so I decided to answer. "You son of a..." she screamed. "What did you do to the house?" That's when I realized exactly what had happened. "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied. "You son of a bitch, you know exactly what I mean," she yelled. "You put something in the ashtrays, and there's something in the bed." "You mean besides you and Brett?" I asked. "Damn it, Carter. Tell me what you did. We can't even use the bedroom." The next voice belonged to Brett, and he was furious. "Damn it, Carter. What have you done? This whole place is like a damn gas chamber or something," he growled. "I'm going to kick your ass." "What are you doing in my bed with my wife, you son of a bitch?" I asked. "If anyone deserves to get their ass kicked, It's you. You'll pay for this, he threatened. I'll be sure to pass that little threat along to Dennis and my lawyer. Bye now. I ended the call and started counting to 10. The phone rang again before I reached 5. I ignored it and sent it to voicemail. I couldn't help but smile, thinking about what had just happened in that bedroom. Something told me they wouldn't be sleeping in that bed tonight. I slept fairly well that night, except for one nightmare where I shot them both with a machine gun. I woke around 10:30 the next morning and went out for brunch. I was surprised when Sophie sat down at my table uninvited. What a surprise, I said. How'd you sleep last night? I think you know how I slept, she said bitterly. I was driving by and saw your car, so I decided to come in. I want to talk. What do you want, Sophie? I'm trying to enjoy a meal. I want to talk about us. There is no us anymore, Sophie. You destroyed that when you decided to sleep with my boss. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. I was just lonely. You think I wasn't? I asked. You knew damn well I was gone because your boyfriend sent me away. By the way, I met with a lawyer yesterday. She's filing divorce papers. You should be served sometime next week. But I don't want a divorce, she said quietly. And I don't want a cheating wife, I told her. Don't worry. I'll let you have the house unless you want to sell it. Either way is fine with me. And my credit card doesn't work anymore, she said. I know. I found out this morning when I tried to pay for gas. I had to use cash. Tell me what you did to the house yesterday. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said. I just came to pick up some more of my things, especially my guns and my computer. Tell me what happened. Well, Brett and I were enjoying a cigarette in the bedroom before going to sleep, she said. I know you don't like smoking in the house, but we figured you wouldn't be back, so it didn't matter. Right after we put out our cigarettes, we both felt this burning sensation. We started coughing, and our noses started running. I knew you did something, but I didn't know what. Well, I guess you won't be smoking in the bedroom anymore, I said. So what did you do? Go to Brett's place. Yes, we spent the night there, she said. But nothing happened. By that point, neither of us was in the mood. That's just too damn bad, I said sarcastically. What are you doing now? She asked. I'm going back to the house to clean up the bedroom. Look, I know it's over between us, but I was wondering if there was any way we could at least part as friends. I couldn't believe this woman's nerve. I put my fork down and looked at her. Friends, I asked. You did the worst thing a woman can do to someone she claims to love. You betrayed my trust and broke my heart by sleeping with my boss. In my house, in my bed. And you have the audacity to ask if we can be friends. She stared at me, her face going pale. Let me tell you something right now, I continued, my voice low and controlled. It takes everything I have not to lose it completely right here. You want to know if I have feelings? Yeah, I do. I used to love you more than anything. But I hate you just as strongly now. Do you really hate me? She asked, tears forming. Yes, I said. I loved you with everything I had. So now I hate you the same way. That's not fair, she whispered. You know what's not fair? I said. What you did. Now you'd better leave before Brett comes looking for you. He might even drag your dignity through the mud while he's at it. Sophie recoiled. She'd never seen this side of me before. She grabbed her purse and stood up. If you don't mind, I'd like to finish my breakfast in peace. Just the sight of you makes my stomach turn. I'm sorry, Carter, she sobbed before turning and walking away. I watched as she got into her car and drove away. Good riddance to bad trash, I thought. But I couldn't help smiling, knowing they hadn't yet encountered the powder mixture I'd sprinkled on the bed. I spent the rest of the day doing virtually nothing. I drove around town, walked in the park, then ended up watching a game at a sports bar while drinking a couple of beers. I thought about going back to the house to get more of my things but decided against it. I wasn't ready to handle being around Sophie yet. I returned to the motel and packed for the trip to Cleveland, and I heard from Sophie one more time on Tuesday, after she was served with the divorce papers at work. She was not happy. "How could you humiliate me like that?" she demanded over the phone. "The process server told everyone it was because of adultery. How could you humiliate me by sleeping with my boss?" I shot back before ending the call. I also received a threatening email from Brett, which I immediately forwarded to Dennis. Dennis wrote back telling me not to worry about Brett. If all goes well, he'll be gone by the end of the week. Okay, I thought, he can take that cheater with him. Now I'm getting ready to head back to Columbus. In a way, it's probably good I haven't been in town to deal with them these past few days. No telling what I might do. Looking at my watch, I saw it was approaching 5 a.m., so I decided to shower, have breakfast, and head home. I was on the road by 6:30 Thursday morning. I had quite a drive ahead of me, so I took the time to relax and think. As I approached Columbus, I turned on the radio to my favorite local station, hoping to catch the morning news. At least one person is reported dead and another is in critical condition after firefighters responded to an incident on Harrisburg Pike last night. The announcer said, "Harrisburg Pike. That's the road our house is on." I turned up the volume and listened intently. According to reports, a carbon monoxide leak resulted in 2 victims being pulled from an old farmhouse on Harrisburg Pike late Wednesday night. Firefighters responded but were unable to revive one victim. The other was transported to Grant Medical Center in critical condition. It's unknown what caused the leak, but officials say the home had an older heating system that may have malfunctioned. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had a bad feeling about this and decided to drive straight home. When I got there, I was shocked by what I saw. The house still stood, but emergency vehicles surrounded it. Yellow caution tape cordoned off the area. I saw 2 cars near the workshop. One belonged to Sophie, the other to Brett. I pulled into the driveway and was stopped by a firefighter. "Sorry, sir, you'll have to leave," he told me. I pulled out my license and showed it to him. "This is my home. I've been in Cleveland since Sunday." "What happened?" "Someone reported hearing the CO detector going off late last night," the firefighter said. "We got a crew here as quickly as we could, but it was already too late for one of them." "I heard on the radio that 2 people were pulled out," I said, my voice tight. "My wife was supposed to be here last night. What happened to her?" "Yes, sir," the firefighter said, his expression somber. "A woman was pulled from the house. She was unconscious but alive. She was taken to Grant Medical Center. I don't know her condition. You'd have to check with the hospital." "And the other person?" The firefighter looked down before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, sir. He didn't make it. Pronounced dead at the scene." I nodded slowly, trying to process what I was hearing. "What caused this?" The firefighter looked at the house and shook his head. "We're still investigating, but it appears the furnace had a faulty regulator. Carbon monoxide built up in the home overnight. The victims were likely asleep and never knew what was happening. The furnace, the one I'd warned Sophie about, the one I'd shut off the gas to, the one I'd told her, repeatedly, not to turn back on until we replaced it. You may want to contact your insurance company," the firefighter added. I nodded and got back in my car. My hands were shaking. I drove to the motel first, needing a moment to collect myself. I called Dennis to tell him the news. "I'm so sorry to hear that, Carter," he said. "Listen, just so you know, yesterday the board agreed to terminate Brett's employment. They were planning to let him go today." There was a pause. "Why don't you head to the hospital and check on Sophie?" Dennis suggested gently. "Take the rest of the day off. Take the rest of the week if you need it." "Thank you," I told him. "I'll see you when I'm ready." I went to the hospital and found the unit where Sophie had been taken. I spoke briefly with the charge nurse and gave her my insurance information. "How is she?" I asked. "She's stable but unconscious," the nurse said. "The doctor says she inhaled a significant amount of carbon monoxide. We're treating her with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It's too early to tell if there will be lasting effects. Can I see her? Not right now, the nurse said. She's in the hyperbaric chamber. The doctor will want to keep her under observation for at least the next 24 hours. Let me take your cell number. We'll call you when you can visit. I gave her my number and went back to my room. And then I cried. Don't ask me why. Maybe it was grief over the years I'd spent with Sophie. Maybe it was guilt, knowing I'd warned her, but not doing more to prevent this. Maybe it was relief that she was alive. Even though I hated what she'd done, I don't know. What I do know is that most of the hatred I'd felt for her was gone. Before she'd slept with Brett, she had been the love of my life. And some part of me still remembered that. I went online and filed a claim with my insurance company. According to the website, they'd inform me of their decision within 30 days. That night, I slept for the first time without nightmares. Over the next few days, I confirmed that Brett had died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Dennis also informed me that Brett's position was now mine if I wanted it. What the hell, I thought. I might as well take it. It meant more money and less travel. I spent a couple of days looking for a decent apartment and found one near downtown. I moved my things from storage, set up the apartment, and spent the weekend retrieving my tools from the old workshop. While I was there, I wandered through the house. The fire department had cleared it as safe once they'd repaired the furnace, but I couldn't bring myself to stay. I looked for anything salvageable, photos, documents, mementos. I found a few things, but not much. A few days later, I got a call from the hospital saying I could see Sophie. I entered her room and looked at her. She was awake, but she looked small and fragile in the hospital bed. An oxygen cannula rested under her nose. Her skin had a grayish tint that the nurse had said would fade as her body cleared the CO from her system. I walked to the edge of her bed. She looked at me, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "Can you speak?" I asked. She nodded slightly and whispered, "Yes." "What happened?" I asked, though I already knew. "We came back Wednesday evening," she said, her voice hoarse. "When we got there, the house was cold. Brett said he'd start the furnace." I closed my eyes. "Sophie." "I know," she whispered. "I know you told me not to, but it was so cold, and Brett said it would be fine." He turned on the gas and lit the pilot. The furnace started working, so we thought everything was okay. "You knew that regulator was faulty," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I told you it could leak carbon monoxide. That's why I turned off the gas. Don't you remember?" "I forgot," she said, tears streaming down her face now. "I'm so sorry. I forgot." I ran my hand over my face. "Jesus, Sophie. Why did you go back there?" I asked. "You could have stayed at Brett's apartment." She closed her eyes. "Brett wanted to," he said. "He said that house represented everything he'd lost when he chose his career over me in college. He wanted to prove he could give me a better life now, that we could start over there, that it could be ours. So we went back." I shook my head. "And he turned on the furnace I explicitly told you was dangerous. He didn't believe it was that serious," she whispered. "He said you were just being paranoid, that you were trying to scare us. I should have listened to you. I should have remembered what you told me about that family you pulled out of their house." "Brett is dead, isn't he?" she asked. "Yes," she sobbed quietly. "I really ruined everything, didn't I?" "Yes, you did," I told her. "What happens now?" she asked. "Well, they said you'll probably need to stay here for observation for at least another week," I said. "Maybe longer, depending on whether there's any lasting damage. It's going to be expensive. I don't know if your insurance will cover all of it." "What about us?" she asked. "I already told you. There is no us anymore," I said. "You destroyed that. The divorce will continue." She began to sob harder. "But I'll keep you on my insurance until you're recovered and back on your feet," I said. "You'll need it." "Thank you," she whispered. Thank you for that. Do you still hate me? She asked after a moment. Not as much as before, I said honestly. But I still don't like you very much. I understand, she said. Carter, I'm so sorry. For everything. I know, I said. I just hope you learned something from all this. What's that? She asked. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. When you play with fire, you get burned. Much to my surprise, the insurance company came through. They covered the damage assessment and declared the house a total loss due to the outdated heating system and the carbon monoxide incident. I received a settlement check. Once the mortgage was paid off, there wasn't much left, and I had no intention of rebuilding. I spoke to Sophie once she was released from the hospital, and we agreed to sell the property and split the proceeds. She'd need the money. The dispatch had placed her on unpaid medical leave while she recovered. The divorce went exactly as Rebecca had predicted. After 60 days, I was a free man. In the meantime, I started seeing Dr. Vanessa Pierce. She was helping me work through my anger and guilt. Yes, guilt, because no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, part of me wondered if I could have done more to prevent what happened. You warned her multiple times, Dr. Pierce said during one of our sessions. You turned off the gas yourself. You gave her the technician's card. You told her explicitly not to turn it back on. What more could you have done? I don't know, I said. Maybe I should have disconnected the furnace completely, or called the technician myself and scheduled the replacement. Carter, you're not responsible for other people's choices, she said gently. Sophie made a choice to turn that furnace back on, despite your warnings. Brett made that choice too. That's not on you. I nodded, but the guilt lingered. I kept my word to Sophie. I kept her on my insurance until she was well enough to return to work part-time. The doctors said she'd been fortunate. The CO levels could have caused permanent brain damage or death. As it was, she had some lingering cognitive issues and occasional headaches, but she was recovering. The dispatch took her back on reduced hours while she continued treatment. As a final gesture, I helped her move into a new apartment. It was smaller than our house had been, but it was clean, affordable, and most importantly, it had brand new heating and CO detectors. I handed her the keys after the furniture had been moved in. I hope you like it, I said. I made sure to choose one with a modern HVAC system and no fireplace. She laughed softly, though her eyes were sad. Thank you, Carter. I really appreciate this. You didn't have to help me. I know. You're a good man, she said, tears appearing in her eyes. You deserve a good woman. I'm sorry I ruined everything for us. I nodded. Yeah. Well, I guess that's how it goes. Did you ever figure out what you did to the house that night? She asked. The burning sensation, the coughing? I hesitated, then decided honesty was the least I owed her now. Irritant powder and fiberglass particles, I said, from my old firefighter hazmat supplies. I mixed them and put them in the ashtrays and on the bed sheets. They react with heat, cigarettes, body heat. Creates a temporary respiratory irritant. I wanted to, I don't know, make you uncomfortable, I guess. Make it so you couldn't enjoy being there together. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I probably deserved that. Maybe, I said, or maybe I shouldn't have done it. I was angry, really angry. I understand, she said. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for what happened with the furnace, but for everything. For Brett. For betraying you. You deserved better. Yeah, I did. I agreed. But you deserved better than what happened too. Nobody deserves that. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then I gave her a brief hug. Take care of yourself, Sophie. I will, she said. You too. I left her apartment and got into my car. As I drove away, I realized I felt lighter somehow. Not happy exactly, but lighter. Now what? I asked myself. I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I was surprised by how many women had given me their numbers over the past few months. Women from work, women I'd met at coffee shops, even a couple from Dr. Pierce's office building. I found the right number and called. Hello. A woman's voice answered. Hi, Jenna. This is Carter. Are you busy tonight? I was busy until you called, Jenna said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I'd met Jenna a couple of weeks ago at a networking event downtown. She had striking green eyes and a quick wit that had made me laugh for the first time in what felt like months. Would you like to grab dinner? I asked. I'd love to, she said. Where are you thinking? There's this Italian place on High Street, Marcella's. Have you been? I haven't, but I've heard great things. 7 o'clock? Perfect, she said. I'll meet you there. See you then, I said, ending the call. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at my phone. Then I looked up at Sophie's new apartment building. The lights were on in her window, second floor, corner unit. I hoped she'd be okay. I really did, but it wasn't my responsibility anymore. I started the car and drove toward my own apartment. I had a couple of hours to get ready for dinner. Maybe shower, find something decent to wear, maybe even smile a little. Yeah, I thought, sometimes playing with a little fire is just what the doctor ordered. But this time I'd be more careful. 6 months later, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. The promotion settled in. The nightmares stopped. Dr. Pierce says I'm making progress with the guilt, because yes, I still feel guilty sometimes. I warned them about that furnace, but I also put that powder in their bed, drove them out of the house that night. Did that contribute to what happened? I don't know. Maybe I never will. Sophie recovered. She's back at work full-time. I saw her once at the grocery store. We nodded, exchanged pleasantries, went our separate ways. No anger, no tears. Just two people who used to know each other moving forward. Jenna and I are still together. She makes me laugh. She doesn't ask about Sophie unless I bring it up. She's good for me. I'm not perfect. I've done things I'm not proud of. But I'm learning that sometimes the fires we set burn us too. And the only way forward is to acknowledge the scars and keep walking. For now, that's enough. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.